my sound good?
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
I always just, you know what? I act like I have to make sure it's good, and then I just fix it after anyways. So whatever. I feel like as long as the camera's okay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
All right.
Whatever.
That's good.
So you just had a friend over.
Yeah.
One of Andy's friends came over to play today.
Yep.
Remember when you were a kid, you'd like go knock on your neighbor's door? Can Jimmy come out and play?
Yep.
You ever say it like that?
Yeah. And sometimes you get nervous because the parents weren't the nicest.
Yeah.
I remember when I was playing for the Sudbury Wolves, and this little kid that lived behind us, and then across the street, came over to my house. He was a little blonde kid. Can you come out and play with me? I'm like, yeah, for sure.
This is the best.
So we played catch.
Yeah. Somebody would come knock on the door to invite you out
like
to play.
17 or 16 years old.
Yeah.
It's funny. Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, I had a friend over today. I was obviously you will see in a podcast, a former friend of mine, teammate of mine, Adam Bennett, came down. He has a nice little business there where he helps out with the mindset for hockey players.
Yeah. So
we had a really good talk about that, and it was really good to see him again.
Yeah, popular topic, the mindset stuff.
Yeah, important.
You made a good point at the end when you guys were talking. I don't know when I'm going to release yet, by the way. I don't know if I'm going to release it in the regular flow or as like a bonus release or whatever. I'll see when I get to it. But popular topic. It's always the how do I play with more confidence, more consistency. It's like all the buzzwords that people normally talk about. You had some good stuff. So keep an eye out for that one.
What was you said the last part? You said there's something good about the last part. It made a good point or something.
Oh, yeah. You were saying, I was going to say how people are come off even tentative about asking for like the mental health, which it's such a paradox because it's one of the most popular things people ask about, but then people are real tentative about asking about. It's almost like the mental health thing in general.
Yeah.
It's like we have to end the stigma. And in reality, it's talked about so much that there isn't really a stigma, but individually it feels like there's a stigma or like you can't come talk about it. Or like you don't want to be the one that has the issue that you need help with.
Yeah, it's really weird.
But everyone talks about it all the time.
Yeah,
like there's
100%.
mental health, everything everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So it's a weird thing, but
because the word mindset, and I get in some ways where people can get scared of that. Because, if you think mindset, like there's some people that teach and it's just like, what are you talking about? Like it's like guru,
scammy,
stupid, scammy shit that if you believe this will happen. And that's not what he was talking about. So I could see that hesitation.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other side is that when people think, okay, you got mindset, you're going to work mindset. It's like it just seems like maybe you're weak, but you are.
Yeah.
You are. Like most people
Everybody
are weak.
is,
If you can strengthen your mind, you're going to be, it's infinite how much stronger you'll be everywhere else in your life, right?
Well, you scale it up to the most extreme, which would probably be a guy like David Goggins, who's like the extreme of the extreme in terms of what you would think of as being mentally tough.
Yeah.
And if you haven't heard of David Goggins before, you look him up. He's like a ex-military guy. He's hardcore, and he talks about he struggles with it every day. He's like, I never want to do any of this stuff. Yeah. So it's not like even him, like he's still weak like everybody else, but he's just his skill of being able to overcome the weakness is something that he's sharpened.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I like about it is that, as you said, you struggle with confidence, my performance, my coach, my this, my that. What it really actually usually comes down to is the 6 inches between your ears.
Yep.
When the 6 inches in your ears can take the problem and flip it, then you're in a different mindset. Right. So most of it is just mindset.
Yeah. And that's the thing, the problem with the mindset thing and people that are, because I have a lot of beef with people that are, mindset coaches or mindset this, because you can't tell who's the fluff versus who is actually helpful. And, because they use all this stuff, and it was a lot of some of the stuff Adam was saying, like people will come up with the like this acronym you can use or whatever. And it always ends up being like you have to buy something else and whatever. And it's never really, it's like the get rich quick schemes and this kind of stuff, because it's not really based on, for some people that are trying to do it, it's not based on anything scientific that actually is proven to help you. Mm-hmm. It's just what they think and what they'll say to you that works because they did it or whatever. Or
sounds good.
Or sounds good. So it's a touchy area because it's like there's a lot of scammy stuff out there that people make money off of telling you how to make your life better, even though their life isn't in order at all, or like all this kind of stuff, right?
That's the best.
So it's a tough thing. But what I liked about the conversation and some of the conversations we have with these mindset guys, because normally it's like a psychologist or whatever, someone who has some kind of backing to what they're saying in research,
Yeah.
is giving actual action steps.
Yeah.
Like something that you can practically do.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good separator for people when you're trying to come up with things that will help you mentally, because with some of this stuff, you might try a strategy that just doesn't work or doesn't stick. Like something like meditation, that's something that just hasn't stuck for me.
Yeah.
You know, and it's proven, there's a lot of literature on it helping, and the concepts and the principles behind meditation are things that I like to apply, but actually sitting and doing like a 10-minute meditation every day,
Yeah.
I've gone through cycles of trying to do it, and it's just not something that works for me.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is like a trial and error of different strategies until you find what will actually help you. So I like talking to people like that who have practical things that you can try to apply, because maybe if you listen to the very first episode we did with Dr. Novetzky, he gave a bunch of stuff, but maybe it's something that doesn't resonate with you. And then you hear a guy like Adam talk where he's basically saying the same stuff, but he has a little bit of a different way of saying it, or a different approach that he uses, or a different strategy. Maybe that works for you or whatever, right? And because it's such a common thing, especially with kids, it's just they're good things to talk about because of how popular it is. Like parents and kids both say it. I have no confidence. I can't get out of a slump, or my kid has no confidence, or is really shy or tentative or whatever. So it's good. It's good information.
No, I thought it was great. I loved it.
Yeah, it was good. So today I wanted to talk about being a teacher. That's what I wanted to talk about today. We were going to talk about, I wasn't sure what word to use. You asked me about this, and I wasn't sure.
Yeah, it was like just so for our followers that listen, because it's hockey, this is where my head was at. But this is this is helpful for because we also have some schools that come in here, and we see teachers and we're not telling a teacher how to be a teacher, but hockey coaching and teaching, it is relatively close. There's things that work and things that don't. And then also, like, teaching is with parents, teaching there's teaching all over the place. So I'm not claiming to be the greatest teacher in the world, but I got some pretty good results with players and
you have strategies.
And a kid.
Yeah. So the reason I'm using the word teacher is because there's a lot of different versions of someone who teaches someone something. Yeah. So that could be as a parent. If you're a parent, you're a teacher. If you're a school teacher, you're a teacher. If you're a coach, you're a teacher. Yeah. If you have an apprentice at your mechanic shop, you're a teacher. Right. So there's a lot of different variations under the umbrella of teaching. So I wanted to talk about this because I had two things that happened recently that kind of were indicators to me. I've been thinking a lot about, we've said this a few podcasts ago, how when you think back on people that were your teachers or coaches or whoever, most of your experiences are either average or negative. And average is taken as negative because there's nothing great about average, right? Average is just average. It's not memorable. There's nothing about it that was necessarily positive that you really were impacted as a result of, right? So when we think about our coaches and teachers, I was kind of thinking about, why is that? Like, why is it that the reality that most of it is felt as negative, right? Or at best average, except for a select few cases. So I had two things that happened that I wanted to kind of bring up to kick off the conversation. So I'll tell my two little stories, and then I'll throw it to you. So the first one happened a few weeks ago. I was at the grocery store buying food, and a dad walked in with his kid, and I passed them maybe 4 or 5 times, just like doing the rounds in the grocery store getting food. Yeah. And every time I walked by this dad with his kid, the dad was trying to show the kid something on a nutrition label. Yeah. Right. And so on the one hand, I'm walking by, I'm like, oh, that's great. Like, the dad's has a good intention. Like, he's trying to teach his kid something, But then I look at the kid, and the kid was maybe 13 or 14 years old, somewhere around there. And the kid was just the most disinterested that you could, the most disinterested. You couldn't picture like poor body language on someone who did not give a rip about what he was being told right now. Yeah. But the dad was still doing it. 3-4 times that I passed him, it was the same picture of him showing the kid a label and the kid not looking interested at all. You can tell by the body language. That was one example. So here's one case where it's like, okay, dad's trying to do something good, kid's not buying at all, not taking the bait, not biting on it, right? Yeah. Maybe I was wrong, but it's not a pushback, it's just a question.
Was it was the kid out of shape?
A little bit.
Okay, Fluffy. Was dad in shape?
Dad was in shape.
Okay.
Not that this is relevant, but he looked like he was a bit of a juice head. Like he
Okay,
looked like he was a little bit on the sauce.
So a possible projecting what he wants for his kid.
Yeah,
Okay.
for sure.
And the other thing I was going to say, do you think it could have been anything to do with maybe a school project or anything like that?
Could have.
Yeah, could have been.
This is
that.
just my outside
just
perspective.
what you saw
right?
as a kid wasn't interested. What made you think
Right.
about like when you're teaching to an audience that isn't there?
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a common thing that happens because it even happens in here with us. Like you can tell when you're teaching somebody, they don't give a rip about what you're saying, or you just explain something and they ask you a question about what you just explained. It's like you weren't paying attention, bro.
If the kid had some brains, he said, yeah, all those nutrition things are really good, but you're on the juice, Dad.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. So anyways, the point of that story was, it was just an example of, okay, here's a dad with a good intention trying to teach his kid something. Kid doesn't care. Maybe I was wrong, but that's how it looked. That's what made me think of this to do the reflection. That was one. Then the second example, I've seen this happen lots of times, so I'll keep it like general because it happens a lot, where you'll be in class. I remember this in school, and you'll have a teacher or somebody who, like, everything's a life lesson. Like no matter what happens, every time they stop the class and they're reaming you out and they're trying to like give you some kind of deep lesson about life. And there's a same thing where the intention is actually good on the part of the teacher, but no one cares about what you're saying. Like the class is not buying in. They don't care about what you're saying. They might be laughing in the background, or they make fun of you after for what you said. You're not getting the buy-in that you want to get with the message you're delivering. So where's the disconnect between
good intention, not the right audience, or only a little bit of the audience cares?
There's something. You have the good intention, which is good, but then there's a disconnect along the way where the message is not delivered or taken by whoever the audience is. So we can apply that, either of those two examples. That could be mom and dad with their own kid overdoing it with the life lessons, or they're trying to teach them something where they don't actually care yet, to the teachers doing that with their classroom, to the coaches trying to get their team to buy into something, or whatever, fill in the blank.
Yeah.
It's just a common thing. So my turning it to you, I guess, is going to be, my question is kind of what is that disconnect? Why the negative? Like, why is it always that this negative or a lot of the time a negative association with your experience with a teacher, where a teacher is missing the mark? And I kind of want to just get into that. So like to start, it's why do you think that it's a lot of times a negative interaction where teachers trying to get a message across, students or team or whatever aren't really listening, or that kind of disconnect? What do you think is the start of that? Like, what are some of the things that you notice that are negative about the teaching?
A respect, like a respect, a commanding in the room, a respect because the teacher or the kids actually go, oh, that's someone that I want to listen to, and engagement, all those kind of things. That's what I think. And the desire for a student to want to be there, right? Like teaching. If you, even for me as an adult, like I'll use myself as an adult, right? I've taken courses and I've taken several courses and I've gone to seminars on not really hockey, but other things where I wanted to learn. So, and I chose my teacher or chose my course because I liked what the background and stuff. So going into that environment, I'm more likely to be a student to listen. So what you got there. So for example, if I go back to what I said, I've got that person's respect already, so I would pay for it, right? And I see that something about them is what I want to be like. So they've got my attention, and I know that their work, from what I've seen, is quality. So I'm going in there as a student, ready to learn. Whereas I remember in the COVID thing, and I've had a couple of these in my life where I've gone to seminars or courses, like in COVID, Hockey Canada and the government, before you could rent ice, you had to go and do this stupid course from Hockey Canada, and it was stupid. I didn't want to be there because they're teaching things I don't want to be, but you have to be there. So they didn't have they had about 3 seconds of my attention. I said, yeah, shut this off. Yeah. So that's so just off the hop before we get into a deep dive, it's like, I want to learn from this person because there's information seems to be good. I respect what they're saying and who they are, and I want to kind of be like, so I'm going to listen to them and I'm going to give them a heck of a lot longer chance.
Right.
Okay?
So
and it could be, yeah, you go now.
Well, no, I was just going to say, so it can be difficult depending on the situation you're in. Yeah. Because this was something you said when we were talking about it the other day. if you're a teacher with a class at school, the kids have to be there. They don't have a choice. They didn't choose
That's
to
what
be
I'm
there.
saying about
So
that Hockey Canada thing.
that's a more difficult situation to be in as a teacher. When you're a hockey coach, the kids all signed up to play. Might be a little bit easier to get. You might be selecting for kids that are more likely to listen. So that's the first thing to get out of the way is like there's different environments, different teaching environments that you have to be able to recognize of how to apply some of the strategies that we're going to talk about later on. But that's a good point to start is that you have to try to create an environment. We'll get into this after, but you have to try to create an environment where you're getting that level of buy-in regardless of the situation, whether it's your math class or your hockey team or your music teacher or whatever the situation is. Right. So then what would you say are maybe the most common things, if we put that aside, the environment thing aside, what are some of the most common things you notice about teachers in any environment that are good or bad or whatever?
Yeah. So over-engaged and under-engaged as a teacher. And with that, I would put that like a student, which you have to understand as a coach, as a teacher, as a parent, is that you can have all the information in the world, and that's only a small part of everything. What the most important part is that you have them buy in, and how you have them buy in is showing how much you actually care. Okay, so and it's not about so the problem with a lot of people that are like a coach, let's say, I don't care how much you know to a certain degree. I want to know that you give a shit about my team and me getting better.
Mm-hmm.
If you're coaching because you want to get to the next level, and that's how you're coaching and why you're coaching, and because you can't hide that for very long, right? Because you're motivated by you perform for me, then you lose them, right? So when you as a teacher, as a parent, as a coach, if you show that you actually care about them and their results, now you shift, because and there's a whole bunch of ways to show the kids that you care about them, like through a team or whatever. Individual, you can show that, so you can absolutely 100% get them engaged by knowing, okay, he actually cares about me, and would say, because that's a big missing link, right? Because it's very easy to get lost in the shuffle. If you're a school teacher, let's say, you got 20 kids in your class, lots are a pain in the ass. Some don't want to be there. Some are really good kids, but you might not even know there was really good kids. You're just trying to get through the day. So what are you really giving? So until you take the time to individually pick them out a little bit and show that I want you guys to be successful, like I want the best for you, you start getting a little bit more buy-in.
Yeah,
and then what I was saying about being over engaged and under engaged is you can under engaged just simply means that the coach, when we're having a conversation, they've got their phone and they're going, work hard.
Yeah, it goes to your point about caring. Like you can tell they don't really give too much of a rip.
Yeah,
it seems like they don't.
Yeah, it seems like you got a little bit more on your mind than me and my, or just do your thing. Yeah. But then you get the over engaged where it's like everything, like you said earlier, is like the most important thing in the world, and you're just so into it, and that becomes a problem as well. So you're over engaged. Like if we take that with raising a kid, or so this is for a parent, if every little mistake is harped on, or if they do something well and it's like yeah, you got to keep doing that, like did you do that again, it's like it's just too much. So there's a medium in there that you have to be able to go with.
Yeah, and I had this conversation with one of the dads too a little while back, and he was kind of asking me about my relationship with my dad and like what my dad did to kind of get me to how I am right now. Both my parents, but there's a specific relationship normally between dad, like son and father. And there's some dynamics at play there that aren't normally the same for mom and dad, obviously, or for mom and son. Obviously, there's exceptions to that. But for me, with my dad, it was like it was more on the over-engaged side, where it was like everything is a life lesson. Like everything is, I need to have this deeper meaning, and everything is so serious, and everything is so detail-oriented. Can't waste a minute. Can't, and there's a lot of positive that did come from that, But there's also a negative part of that where it's too much, right? And when I was a kid, I didn't know how to handle all of that, because how could I? I don't have the skills to know, like, I need to make a schedule. Like, I have to stick to a schedule. It's like I'm 12.
I'm 12.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and this is and my dad did, I'm not like ripping on my dad at all. Like, he did a lot of great things to help me get to how I am and get my practice habits in order and all that kind of stuff. And that's probably a lot of the reason why I'm more on the OCD side of things, which I actually like because it's come in handy a lot. But when I'm a kid like that, it was exhausting, right? And that's what I see sometimes with teachers when they're lecturing the class, and you just see the class with like this body language of just like, here we go, here's another one. Oh, look, sir's going on a tear again today, talking about our miss is gonna give us shit for the next 20 minutes now, and we're not gonna do anything, where it's like they're not even slightly paying attention to the intended message. So that's where the underengaged, overengaged, I would say that's probably the most common issue I find too. It's they're on one side or the other. It's either they're not enough into it, or there's not enough care, or they're in it for the wrong reasons. Like, as a teacher too, I keep going to the teacher thing just because it's more relatable for a lot of parents probably. Is, this is my job. Like, you're thinking about it like this is my job where I come to make my money and then go home at the end of the workday. Whereas a teacher, it's supposed to be about the kids, right? You're supposed to be teaching the kids. So that can be a problem. And then with the parents too, it's the same thing. You go to the flip side where it's like you're so about your kids being the best and the most important and special and the best at everything. It's like you're way too much, man.
Can't let them make a
Yeah,
mistake. You make a mistake, it's the end of the world, but
Right.
it's not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I agree. That's the exact same thing that I see. You have to have like some kind of a balance.
Yeah.
To that, right?
Yeah. So within that overengaged, underengaged, I would say, like, if underengaged would be you come to school lethargic or uninterested, or you're here, or you go to your practices and your games, and like, I'm here. What's the plan, coach? And it's like, you're scrambling because you're just there, right? And kids are talking to you. You've never thought of like, hey, I need to talk to Eric today because you had a couple good games. I want to keep him going. Eric, come here for a second. And it doesn't have to take much, but it's like, you're doing this well, keep it up, smack him in the arse. A couple kids, and then you talk about your game plan and stuff like that. Like, and as I'm speaking, you can see that I've got some enthusiasm. That's what teaching. That's how you bring out the best of people. Like, sometimes it's a little bit too much and too hard and too fast, but that there's something there. Like, okay, I should be about excited about something.
Right.
I should be motivated about
Exactly.
something because this freaking mental case is, right. You can see it.
That's
you
right.
can feel it. That's that presence that comes out.
Exactly.
Right. And that's what you should, if you want to have people around you that are going to respond to your message. There should be some sort of energy that goes with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. And one thing I would point out about it too is, and maybe it's because I'm still close in age with the kids that we're training and stuff, so I get where their head is at. There's a time where you want to be optimally engaged all the time as a teacher, meaning sometimes you should be more underengaged and more overengaged. So a simple example for me is when I'm talking to the kids through the workout about their warm up, right? Kids don't give a shit about warm up. I remember I didn't care about warm up. I don't care about mobility. I don't care about any of that. So if I really overengage on the mobility, they don't care, man.
They're going through the motions.
They're going through the motions. So
and
instead,
it is what it is for that age.
Yeah. So instead, I get on their level about it, and I say, hey, like, it's really easy to not care about this stuff, and I get that because it's like seems like it's not doing much, but it's actually important. So just do your best to be engaged when you're doing these movements. I know it's a pain in the ass, but it actually will help you if you do it. And I leave it at that. And that's all. It's not like halfway through the mobility, I'm like, you guys are goofing around and nobody's taking it serious and blah, 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 way on the overengaged side. And now they're just like, okay, buddy, relax, So it's all, you have to be able to read that, where to plug the overengagement and where to not. And a lot of times too, like you see, especially with teachers, they'll get mad about small details that don't matter just for the sake of commanding order, right, in the classroom or whatever. And you have to be able to let some of that stuff slide so that the kids feel like I'm not just always getting in shit about stuff, right? So there's a balance between the overengaged, underengaged thing where you have to be able to do both. It's not like there's one right in the middle solution where you're always not fully overengaged, not fully underengaged. That's not it. It's like a sliding scale. Sometimes you're more towards the overengaged, sometimes you're more towards the underengaged, depending on the circumstance, the audience, what they care about, so that you can level with them, right? And if you want to, because if you want to get results, especially if it's something they don't care about, which in school and with certain types of training styles, a lot of kids don't care about any of that, right? So if you want to get the buy-in, then you have to get on their level about it, and you have to be able to relate in a way that they'll respond to, not just be the dictator of the room kind of thing, right?
Yeah, and the thing, like when you talk about your the mobility and stuff, I agree 100%. I didn't really give a shit about it until I was 50.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Like really, I didn't care.
Mhm.
Like you'd never tell me that that's an important part of life, and I'm a pretty mature guy. Well, not an immature person. I'm old. So it took me a long time to realize, oh, this is why it's important, because it's my body moves better. So you're not saying just ignore it. What you do is like addressing the D zone with a goal scorer, right? When you talk to a goal scorer or someone that wants to put up points, and especially when they're younger, about how important the D zone is, they're like, the answer is yeah. Oh yeah. And then they go and do their same thing over and over. They don't hear the message. When you're talking about the warm ups in your fitness in the fitness groups and the mobility, they don't want to really hear that message. But what you can do is to make sure you address it and you make it important, is you tell them the reasons why. So, the best that I can do with a goal scorer, especially let's say a 14-year-old offensive player, is I could explain to the team why D zone is so important. And this is how it doesn't matter unless you're Connor McDavid, but even he had to tighten that up. This is what will get you to the higher levels. And then individually taking that player and saying, okay, I know you like to score goals, blah, blah, blah. And you give them your best swing at D zone and explaining how attractive that is to a scout and stuff and to your future. And if they don't get it, you throw it out, throw them a bone every now and then to remind them. And then you maybe reward other guys. Say, look at the D zone there, and if they hear the D zone is important, they might buy, but they're probably still not going to. But at least you did your job to teach it. And it's the same with the warm-ups, right? All you can do is you say, like, here's the importance of it. This will help you move better. This is how you're going to lift better. Blah 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 blah. And then it's going to go in one ear and out the other for the most part. But you did your job.
Yeah,
and you did it well.
And to your point about you have to show you care about the person. Like, this is why that relationship thing is so important, because without doing that, you're not going to be able to relate to something they value. And that's what's important about when you're teaching somebody, is you have to be able to say the reason you want to do this thing that you don't want to do, the reason you should do this thing you don't want to do, is because it will lead you to this result on this thing that you said you care about. Perfect example for me is the kid with their eating. None of these kids eat, man. Like, I don't know if I just got the Italian gene and was lucky when I was a teenager, because I just pounded food from the time I was 12 until today. But some of these kids don't eat, dude. They won't eat. So they say, yeah, I'll try to do this meal plan, but I don't like this, but I don't like this. If I say to them, well, yeah, but you need to eat so you get stronger, it's like, that's not enough of a reason for them, right? So it's like, for this kid, I'm thinking of one kid in particular. I'm like, dude, like, you talk about how you want to get faster all the time, or how you feel tired in your games. It's like, you want to have a better game? It's like, you want to feel better in your game? You have to eat, dude. Like, you don't have a choice. So if you want to be a better performer in your game, you need to eat more so that you're fueled properly. Now that relates to that kid. That kid cares about playing well, right? He doesn't necessarily care about, I need to get stronger, but he knows that playing well in my game, that's important to me. So if you do this, this will help you perform better in your game. It's not just, well, if you don't do this, you're not eating properly. It's like, that's not a good enough answer, right?
That's an adult way of...
Yeah, right? So they don't know how to make that connection. So as the teacher, you're making that connection for them, which you can only do if you take a individual interest in that person, because otherwise you can't relate to what they're valuing as an individual, And so that's a perfect example that I find with those kids with their eating. It's like, you want to get stronger? Like you said, you want to put on weight so that you're not getting knocked around on the ice as much. It's like, here, I'm telling you, this is how you can do it. And without fail, these kids they're not perfect. They don't do it exactly how the prescription is given, but they make improvements. There's progress there, and that's where you start to see the kids are learning, and that development curve, they're starting to follow it now, or they're developing, because I've given them something that shows them you'll get towards this goal that you say you have if you do this thing that you don't care about right now, So you have to be able to relate on that level too. That's why that's a huge point to care about that person, make them feel like you care about their development as an individual, So you kind of touched on it, but maybe say a little more on it.
Yeah, sure. Okay,
Is
ready?
wait, it's the it's it's okay. So I want to do like some solutions to the problem. That's what I want to do. I want to make it very explicit for people. Like do these things, and it'll help you do better
Yeah, I know.
in our opinion.
Yeah.
So the first one you talked about, like your general demeanor, kind of as a teacher.
Yeah.
So the prepared, being early, engaged
Yeah.
kind of thing. So say a little more of the importance of that point.
Okay, so I don't really know which one to go first.
Yeah, whatever.
But it doesn't matter, I guess.
Mhm.
So I would say be prepared. Okay, so in your preparation, what does that mean? That means that you actually gave some thought to what your lesson is going to be, your coaching plan is going to be, what your um, fitness program is going to be that day. It's not just let's do legs today or let's do breakouts today. It's got to be more than that. You've got to look at the plan for what are the deficiencies that my team has, what is the good things that we're doing, what do we need to work on, and plan that out so that it's an excellent, not just okay, it's excellent.
Yep.
Okay, so plan. So that means that, so when you plan, that means that you're probably prepared to execute really good, because there's nothing worse than a coach coming in or a teacher coming in, because you can recognize when they're scrambling. Like every now and then you can come on the ice and throw a practice plan together and change it on the fly, and it's actually pretty good. It works out that once in a while. But if you're going to bank on having success with that, that's not the way to do it.
Yep.
So you have to have a plan and so that you're prepared, and that could be like kind of that day or for the week or for the month or for the year.
Yep.
But everything's a little bit fluid. But be prepared.
Yep.
So this is what you want to get out of that practice or game or whatever, right? And then with that is, and I'm going to say it's kind of the same thing, but it's not, but it is, is early, engaged, and enthusiastic has to be
Triple E, you might say.
Triple E hockey. But
Triple E.
why do I say early? Because again, like I have a rule for my business, and I've always been this way. If I had I'm not joking, because it's happened. I had 6:30 in the morning classes or lessons several times, like, well,
All
forever.
the time. Yeah.
All the time, except for the last couple of years. 6:30 in the morning. What time should you get there for a 6:30 practice if you're the coach? I'm running it. People are paying me to run that thing. Not 6:30 and not 6:20, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, I would say at least a half hour.
I was always a half an hour early.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
Every single time. Minimum, well, not minimum, about a half an hour early.
Be the first one in the building. Yeah. There you go.
Always the first one there.
Yeah.
And the ironic thing was, like, for example, his dad's like an early guy, and it's not because he's like got to be prepared. He's just like a pain in the ass. Like, okay, let's go. You got to be there half an hour early. So there's a couple times where they were like pulling in the parking lot with me, and I didn't like it. And the reason I say that is because if I'm the coach, or if I'm the teacher, I'm the boss, I need to show you that I'm ready to go and I'm more prepared than you, or that I'm just or matching your enthusiasm. Like, yeah, I want to be here.
Yeah, that's right.
And by showing up scrambling or the last second, then it works for some people. I don't actually think it does.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. It's an appearance that you're scrambling. So, sorry. So for me, being early, there's a such thing as being way too early, but being early and ready to go is important, because there's, and it gives you a chance to, if you're early, if something goes wrong along the way,
you got time.
You've got time to fix something, or all of a sudden you're 15 minutes early, like 15 minutes before your practice or your game, something goes wrong. Maybe 5 guys call in with the flu. Well, then now you can sit down and say, you're not panicking. Oh, I got to write new drills up. You can sit there and go, I got 15 minutes. We'll change this. Oh, I'll work with these guys with this, and I'll do this. Okay, perfect. But if it's the last minute, then you're going, okay, guys, start scratching your balls and going, I'm not sure what to do here. Let me figure it out. So it's that kind of stuff. And the other thing is that you could be, if you're early, you don't know what your players are going to be like coming in. So if you don't know if you might have to take a shit. Yeah. Right? Like you don't know, all these things can happen. So you got to cover your ass. But a player could be walking in and, a 12-year-old kid, he might be crying. Or you could just see something in his body language. There's something wrong. You can pull him aside. Hey, what's going on, bud? right? Or it could be like you have someone walking in and you needed to talk to that kid, or you want to, it could be good, bad, whatever, encouraging, whatever. You have the time to do that,
Right.
and it could change rather than cramming everything in to that small little window that you have.
Yep.
The other thing that I want to say about the preparedness part is, like, you see when I'm on the ice, I already know what I'm doing. I've been doing it for 23 years. If I'm going to do a stick handling, I go with a theme, do the theme, like, or if I'm going to do shooting, it's a theme. That's how I do my practices.
Yep.
If I have a theme, I can just go off the top of my head, but I don't do it that way because it's not good to scramble. So what I do in a practice plan is I do a theme, and then within that I'll put six, like if in an hour practice I'll put 5 to 6 things, because I never put this is 7 minutes, this is 4. That theme is fluid now. So then if something's going really well, then I might go, okay, we're going to tweak it here. Something's going poorly, then we'll spend more time or we'll change it. So I give myself a couple different options, backup plans. And it's no different than if you're going into a game, right? It's being prepared is not just coming in enthusiastic. It's coming in with a plan. So a plan for what we want to do, and then also a counter plan for if that doesn't work, I need to do something else. So there's more to it than just being enthusiastic.
Yep, for sure.
But when you have the preparedness laid out, then you can kind of like your brains aren't scrambled anymore.
Yep.
Right. So this, and this, and now you can actually be enthusiastic. You can actually have a presence. You can have some energy, and you can be focused. So it helps. So that makes you a good teacher, a better teacher, but it also gives you gives the kids the best version of you.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
And that's on that note. I was just going to say that to finish off this point is for people that might think it doesn't matter or you can get away with just being right on time or whatever, the kids notice, right? And because one of the common question we ask kids in here when they come to work out is, who's your coach and how do you like them? Mm-hmm. That's a common question. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times one of the points kids will give me is, yeah, he doesn't come to practice sometimes, or he's always late, or he stops practice early for some reason, like a lot of times. You know what I mean? And so it's like the kids pick up on all this stuff. It's like, or they'll say, we do the same drills all the time. Yep. So it's like, even if they don't say the words, yeah, I can tell my coach doesn't give a rip, or he's unprepared, that is what they're picking up on it, right? So if you think you're getting away with it, you're not. And that's just kind of the last point I want to end on.
Well, yeah, like in the middle of a game, as a coach, I'm saying now, say in the middle of the game, you think you have a game plan, right? Have you ever given it any thought that it's 3-3 game with 4 seconds left, you got an offensive faceoff on the right-hand side? Mm-hmm. I'm not saying this for an atom, whatever, but some consideration is important. Yep. Do you have any idea who you would put on the ice? Do you have any idea what face-off play that you can maybe run? Just stuff like that. So like there's a lot of things so that you can pull out, oh, this is what I got.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
so
second point we wrote down was commanding the room.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I like the sound of it, but it can be easily misinterpreted as to what that means, right? So I had a young team in here the other night, and I had just finished a workout group before them with some of the older kids, so some of the U18 kids that were in here. So the team came in, and there's like 15 of them. They're just young guys, so I'm just showing them basic movement stuff. And so the one kid that just finished his workout, he goes, "Man, that's a lot of kids. Like, how do you handle that many kids?" And I was like, "Oh, they're great." I was like, "I never have an issue with them at all." He's like, "Well, like how? Like, what do you do?" So the kids, because I was sitting kind of finishing up that group, these guys were all in there horsing around a little bit just in the gym before we started the workout. And I, like, loud, not yelling, but loud. It was just like, "Boys," like gave them a shout. All of them stopped, dead quiet, looked right at me right away, like that, right? And then I looked back to the kid and I was just like, that's how. Because you set the tone of the room day one with the kids, right?
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that you're Army guy drill sergeant all the time. That's not what commanding the room means, right? So I think for me, then you can kind of say what you think of kind of what that means. For me, it's having enough of a voice where you can stop the bullshit when there's too much bullshit going on, because they're kids, right? They're going to start messing around. They're going to want to play games, and they're going to start goofing off. They're going to get overexcited and lose their focus on what we're actually trying to do and all those types of things. So you have to have enough of a voice where you can stop that dead stop it, right? And then the other part of it is they respect you, right? Which you touched on earlier.
Yeah.
So those are kind of the two things for commanding the room. It doesn't mean you're army guy all the time, like arms crossed. You're so intimidating to them that they can't help but be quiet all the time, you know? So those are kind of my thoughts on that. But I think that's a really important thing to have, because you see that with a lot of coaches or teachers, is they can't reel the kids in when they need to be reeled in, you know? So you have to have good command in that way.
Yeah, I think we were talking about like the commanding the room for me, commanding the ice, commanding my dressing room. It's like, first, as you said, there's a respect. I've earned a little bit of respect through a step on the ice. I can do what not every coach can do that, but when I step on the ice, I can do what I'm teaching, right? I can do it at a good level. So they go, okay, this guy knows what he's doing. So that's actually kind of important.
Yep.
I'm a math teacher and I don't know how to do 2 + 2. Well, you
Yep.
should.
Yeah. 2 +
Well, yeah,
2.
I don't know square roots and stuff. So that's the best I could come up with.
You could do a more complicated example of 2 + 2.
But you command a room by like, so if you can do the thing, it makes it better.
Yep.
Number 2 is if some people can get some good attention with the kids by being goofy or like horse around stuff, but then that goes so far because they get taken advantage of.
Right.
So the bottom line is that you have to set the tone right from the beginning of the season, every practice, every day, and it's like they know that there's a time where things have to be dialed in, and there's the times where you can goof off a little bit. But so when coach walks in, that means it's listen time. One of the things I always did as a coach, and I do it today, because I'm helping, teachers and stuff like that, I would think, when kids that haven't been around me for too long, because like it's amazing, they obviously get away with a lot of stuff somewhere else.
Yeah.
I don't understand. So I think I've used this example before, but I don't know. I always told Charlie growing up, all our kids this. I don't care if you get an A. I don't care if you get an F in your class. I really actually don't. Providing that you're giving some effort, some. But even then, I actually don't really care. That's just me. But what I do care about is that if I got a call from the school, from one of the teachers, from the principal, or anything like that, that there was a sign of any disrespect to that teacher, then I'll go to the teacher and say, yeah, this kid's a jackass. I'm going to deal with him. And that will disappoint me. And Charlie knew that. Avery knew that. Carter knew that. Like that was the end of it. You do not disrespect people that are putting time, energy into your life.
Yep.
So when kids go on the ice, that's what I say to them. So I say that, but I say that to them, with them hoping they go back to you've heard me say this, not just for me, you should be doing this for every one of your coaches and teachers.
Yep.
So that message is planted to them that there is an authority, and you don't have to like them. Like I know Charlie comes home with teachers and I go, yeah, he's a wiener, man.
Yeah.
The guy's a wiener, but he's your teacher and you have to stay between the lines and respect. Don't disrespect him in front of people, or, have that respect. So I feel like as a teacher, you should teach that.
Yep.
And if you do that, you're showing them disrespect is not good under any circumstances. The other thing you should do, and I think teachers should do this as well, but when I coached, I was always the alpha, right? So as the alpha, I can empower my other coaches by just saying things, meaning Tom was one of my assistant coaches one year. Tom was more of a quiet guy, really nice guy, and he didn't have the hockey knowledge. But I would always say that when Tom walks in this room and speaks to you, you need to shut up. I don't say it like that, but you need to be quiet. You need to listen because he's got something to say, and it's important. And we're all on the same level. I just happen to be the head coach. So what that's called edification, is building other people up.
Yep.
And we build other people up. Like if I talk to people, like the kids, and you do it to the kids, and you don't probably even know you do it. But when I'm not here, or sometimes I am there, everyone calls me Uncle Nate. Where's that come from? That's you.
Yeah.
You build like Coach Andy. So when Coach Andy actually walks in the room or says hi to them,
right, yeah.
it freaking means something.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
If you don't want Uncle Andy to snap.
Yeah, that's right.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's automatic. There's a respect factor, and it goes vice versa. That's what I say. Like Eric's all over this thing. He puts the time. We build each other up.
That's right.
So what happens is you build Well, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah.
You're building other people up. So your expectation when someone walks in the room, they go, "Oh, go, okay. Oh yeah, I could see why he
Right.
is the boss, or I could see why he's the this, the that, the coach." So that's like it's actually critical.
Yeah, and to go back to Jocko thing, that book, Dichotomy of Leadership, I want to
Mhm.
make it clear that it's not always drill sergeant mode either, right?
No.
That's what you have to understand as coaches, because everyone's had a coach like that where it's like Mr. Joe Tough Guy all the time.
Yeah,
And
that's
it's like you just are not getting
gets old.
the idea, man. You just
Yeah.
don't get the point.
Yeah.
So I think it's also an important thing to do with the commanding the room is you also have to be able to keep it light too, right? There has
For
to
sure.
be when it's time to be in command, you can do that. But then you can walk around to any person on the ice or anyone in your classroom or anyone on whatever team, and you can goof around with that person,
Yeah.
you know, and be close but not too close. That's the Jocko, one of the Jocko principles, right? You
Yeah.
want to be close where it's like we have a trust, we have almost a friendship, but not so close that
There's
you
a
don't
line.
take me
There's a
seriously,
line.
right? Yeah. So that's good. I like that one a lot.
Yeah.
Next one we wrote down was, in quotes, was reading the game.
Yeah.
Do you want me to start with this one, or do you want me to?
Do you want me to? I'm good.
You want to go or me? I'll go. I'll give you a break.
Go. I'm good.
So the read the game thing is being able to apply your teaching to the individual person or to that particular group that you're teaching. That's how I see it.
You're saying like both.
Both,
Yeah.
right? So you have to be able to modify what you're saying, how you're saying it, to relay the same message that you want to be relaying,
Yeah.
and making it appropriate for the group that you're talking to. So, for example, one of the classes that I teach is from one of the schools that's down the street, and it's not all high level elite athletes. So what I would say to those guys, or how I'm going to teach those guys, is not going to be the same as a group of 20 AAA hockey players that all have the same goal of being in the NHL. I got a group of 20 kids where one of them wants to be an astronaut, one of them wants to be a farmer, one really likes video games, one doesn't even play hockey. So it's a different type of group. And then within that, not every individual person is going to be this go-getter, really ambitious type.
Yeah.
So the way that you speak or present your lesson or your whatever you're trying to teach them, it's not going to be the same for that kid. They might not relate to that. And it goes back to the thing I was saying about values before, is like being able to relate to the individual. That's one thing that I really noticed with teachers in a classroom setting in particular, is they have a hard time reading when is it time to give the life lesson versus when is it time to just let that one slide, versus discipline versus talk to them a little bit more buddy, right? So being able to know when those situations come up and which style you should be applying, that's a really important skill. And I don't even really know what I would say about how to teach that. Like, I don't really know what my points would be. So why do I know how to do that? Like, I feel like I know how to do that. Like, I feel like I know how to.
I think because you're dialed in.
Is it just awareness? Like, you think it just comes down to awareness?
You're aware, and I think you have a common sense. Like, sometimes common sense isn't common, right?
Yeah.
So, and I think that you have experience. Like, I think that when the give a shit meter's low, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
When the give a shit meter's high, then you're aware of all these things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, going back to like reading the room again. It's like this. I'm just going back to the commanding again. You command the room. Like, if you see someone looking down when you're talking, like it's like, Eric, do you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So it's okay to say yes or no.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's like commanding, but you're recognizing that kid. And if you see everyone like that, well, you've lost them.
Right.
Right. So reading the room is, you're 100% right. So you got, see, there's different. I mean, this is like Tony Robbins, 1987. Okay. You got kinesthetic learners, you got audio learners, you got visual learners, right? And some people have to do. So by showing a drill or showing your plan, like, you have to attack all three, four, whatever it is, right? But you do. Everyone learns a little bit different. So not just what you say, people get it.
Yeah.
Right. So reading a room, you have to say things in a manner, and you got to catch if people are not paying attention, or they're really paying attention, then you go accordingly. If you're losing them, you got to pull back. So that's one. You got the room, and then individually, it's critical. So there's so many times where people say, okay, everybody, like you show a drill, you show something in here, and you say, everybody got it? And they go, yeah. And
Right.
it's like, that means no.
Yeah.
Yes means because everyone else is saying yes, and I don't want to look stupid, right? So you might have to pull guys aside and or say take the kid that screws it up all the time. Say, do you actually understand it, Eric? Yeah, actually I do. You sure? Could you lead the drill? Yeah. Okay. You know you read it.
Yeah.
Other things is you look at attitudes. You look at like the other thing would be in reading a room is also like, let's just take the gym for example. In our gym, sometimes people are nervous. Sometimes people are not confident. People don't want to do the thing, right? Like, so when you said that your example of the students that at the school that come here as opposed to the AAA guys, the students at the schools might be going, I don't even want to be here. So how do you address that? Like, how do you get anything out of someone that doesn't want to be here? So my thing is to find a reason to get them motivated or to give them a reason, right? So in a class like that, it's taking the time and saying, okay, I know that you're not really uh, you don't care about weightlifting. You're just here because it's school. But I'm going to encourage you to do something, son. Is I want you to try. I said because you know what it's going to do. There's going to be this reason and this reason why it's going to be good for you, and you know, you give a few things like that, and then you might get some. You might squeeze some juice out of the lemon.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And you don't want to, I go back to the command thing because it's really easy to misinterpret that where it's like, I need to always be barking at everybody
No.
to command the room. And now you're not reading the game. Right. So it's like you have to, being able to read it is like you have to be able to apply what's appropriate when it's appropriate. Right. Exactly what you're saying. And that takes knowing the individuals involved, knowing the team that you have, the types of personalities. And if you struggle with that as a teacher, like maybe it's one of those things where you can go through the list of kids in your class or on your team and be like how do I think this kid learns? Like what is my impression of how he learns? Like actually ask the question, right? Do the analysis. If you feel like you don't have the skill, do the analysis, right? Because that's something that just reflecting on it now while you were talking, it's like I do that with the kids constantly in my head. It's like I know this kid I can make this joke, that kid I can't really do that with,
sure.
right? So I'm constantly assessing the personalities and what is going to be effective for that kid. Like we have one kid that's super quiet. You were talking to his mom on the phone a couple weeks ago, and I'm starting to crack the armor because I'm starting to figure out how to get the kid to smile when he's in the gym or how to get him to talk more than one sentence or whatever. And so I'm constantly doing that. I'm constantly reevaluating, does this work for this kid? Does this not? This kid's starting to get more comfortable. Maybe I can take another step further and give him a chirp about this thing and see if he can handle that or whatever the situation is, right? With certain groups of kids. And I think that is the strategy. It's like if you have a hard time or a kid that's particularly a pain in your ass, it's like, what is it about that kid? You know, what is it that he or she is doing to make them be a pain in your ass, right? And then you can start to figure out how to deal with that and read that kid, right? To plug in a different strategy. Next one we had was asking questions. This is probably my favorite one. This is one of the best things you ever taught me, man. I have to say that.
Really?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I thought I taught you other stuff.
You've taught me all kinds of things, but this is probably the most important thing that you've ever taught me about being a teacher or about being a coach. Is you ask, you don't tell. Not that you never tell, but most of the time, especially if you're trying to solve a problem, it's like you're asking. You're letting the kids come up with their own ideas. And I think it's important because I find this, especially with the young kids, they can do a lot more than people will give them credit for, you know? So with the youngest group I have in here is a team, they're 12. So it's like they don't really know how to do anything, right? But I have them to the point where they run their own warm up. They completely set up the gym with all the equipment. They know how to do everything. They know how to run the flow, and they know how to do it without messing around. And that's because I give them the responsibility by asking them about why we're doing the things we're doing. So they really get it because then they can go run with it, you know, because their kids aren't dumb. They're just inexperienced. They don't have any knowledge of anything yet, right? But they're not stupid. So that the biggest thing that probably the most valuable lesson you've taught me as being a teacher is to don't hijack kids' problems by just giving them the answer. It's like make them think of the answer, right? Make them come up with their own answer, right? So you can go ahead with that.
Yeah, I think I used it in our podcast just recently with Adam. Is you know, like the first thing as a team, I took that team when I coached Charlie when he was young, because the question was it wasn't a AAA team, it was a young group of kids, and they won 2-3 games the year before. So my first question with them was, as I decided to coach, So are you guys here to have? Would you guys want to have a lot of fun? Could we just make this a fun year, or do you guys want to try to win some games, and or do you want to learn some like valuable hockey stuff to make you a better hockey player? So that's a question. That's a general question. All of them to a kid, they'll say we want to learn and play good hockey. Okay, so that's my approach. I didn't go in there and say, okay, because if I would have went in there and said, okay, and just guns ablazing, teach them everything I know about hockey at 10, they would have probably not enjoyed it. But I got their buy-in and I explained how we're going to do that.
Yep.
If they would have said we're just going to have fun, we just want to have fun, then I can't use the approach of teaching hockey that much because it's like they don't want to.
Yeah, they just want to play.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was age appropriate for me to ask that question. So at every level, you have to ask a question to see what they want. And it's not like, even if I'm coaching the NHL, if I say we're here to win the Stanley Cup this year, all right, that's the team goal. But then we look around the room and go, yeah, we're winning the Stanley Cup. We don't have this guy. We don't have this guy. We got the shittiest coach, right? How are we winning the Stanley Cup? Well, then it's stupid. But the question now is, guys, how many guys in this room want to win a Stanley Cup? And now you get the hands up. Okay, so you told me that this is something that you want to do. Mm-hmm. Now I need to coach appropriately. Like sure. You can actually manipulate, not manipulate, that's not the right word, but you can get people to get into your thinking if you ask questions, right?
Yeah.
So asking questions as a team, that's good. Then you can help accordingly. But then more importantly is, how do you get the best out of everybody? So because it's easy, no, I wouldn't say it's easy. It's one thing to coach a talented person that gets it, and your dream player. Mm-hmm. You got the talent, you got the skill, you learn, you come in the office, hey coach, what about this? This guy's struggling. I'm going to talk to him or whatever. That's the easy guy to coach. It's the guy that's having, as you're older, maybe there's different problems, or that he's not engaged, or he doesn't believe in himself, and all those different things that happen in life to the best of us. Now that's where a coach actually has to be a coach, and not a counselor, but a coach. And if I go up to you, Eric, and you're feeling like shit, or you're not scoring, and I just say, listen, Eric, you just need to score some goals. You need to get mentally tough, or you just do this, this, and this. I believe you can do it. I just do it. Or I give you direction. Then you may believe it. You might. It might be the right thing to say. But if I go up to you and say, Eric, dude, I feel like you're down a little bit on yourself. Was it true? Like, yeah. Right? Or what are you feeling about yourself? You get you to speak, yes. And it might be that I don't know. I want to help you. I want to help you help us, but I want to help you. So what do you feel? Give me a couple things. What do you want out of this? And always go to that goal. Like, what do you want out of this? Do you want to get out of this slump? Do you want to do this? Whatever it is. And then as you speak, now it's your idea. Mm-hmm. Right? And if it was your idea, now I could help you reach your goals. So it's no different than being in the gym. Someone might be lazy they don't want to do a squat. Why don't just say, well, you need to squat. It's Eric, what's going on? You're not into squatting, and So what is it about it that you don't like? What is it? What do you want out of this? Do you want to play at the next level? Do you want to get stronger? You're asking questions so they can give you an answer. So now when they give you an answer, now you can work with it.
Yes.
Without their buy-in, it's really, really tough.
Yeah. And then kind of wrapped in that too is the how you're asking the questions too. Like we talk about
tone.
The tone is kind of weaved in all of these, but it's that part of it's important. And then the other half of this was the you actually mentioned it, and you're really good at this too, is telling a story with it, right? And one of the things I've noticed on social media is the clips we have that do the best is when one of us is telling a story of something that happened. Yeah. Right? Using some type of an analogy to a story that happened to us. Like when we were talking about the shooting thing, like what I used to do when I would practice shooting, that was one that was really popular. You were talking about being in your basement with the spray paint on the walls and stuff. And people really resonate with stories because it's relatable, because most people in any given space will have had similar experiences where they feel like now you understand them, right? You can relate to what they're doing. Yeah. And using stories to give messages or to help inspire the kids or motivate the kids is another element to it that's really important. And that doesn't mean it's always story time, right? but that's another where you go back to reading the game and when to apply that and when to not. But that's a huge thing, and you're really good at that too, whether it's an analogy or
Yeah,
a story
the
thing.
thing with stories is that I think a lot of people see life in stories.
Yeah.
Like I know I do. If you can paint a picture for me in a story, I go, oh, okay, that makes more sense. Whereas you're giving me just a straight up lesson, telling me this, that, and the other thing. So like when Adam was on today, he was giving us the one visual on emotion and thoughts, and then once you put the emotion, oh, that makes sense now. So as a player, if I hear a story about something, I'm not like Once Upon a Time. But when I hear a story, like someone relates a hockey story or this happened, then it's like it makes it a little more interesting. A lot of the times you're using a third party, right? The other stories I like to use is they help motivate, because like if you can tell a story about someone else, like I would take a story from a magazine or an article that I read or someone else, and I can relate that. Well, now it's not me.
Yeah, where it's not about you. Oh yeah, that's
right?
that's
Sidney
a huge
Crosby,
point,
guys. Yeah. I was reading this article about Sidney Crosby. We were talking about hard work. Well, think about this. I was reading this article, and he's obviously one of the hardest workers in the league, and he's one of the best. Do you realize that in this article, this guy was talking about Sidney Crosby every time he came in before practice, he was working on his face-offs, and you're relating that hard work and little details and all that stuff, and it's like you're not the asshole for saying work harder.
Yeah,
you're getting a message across through other people that they respect, people that they like,
and you're not doing the humble brag,
right?
Talking about how great you were one time, right?
Yeah,
because kids pick up on that too, and it's like you just sound like an idiot when you do that, right?
Yeah, there's one game. I used to pull out stories, and this is kind of an art, but and it's through experience too,
yeah,
right?
For sure. Yeah, it's not easy to do, man.
When I was coaching in Detroit, I was really frustrated with our team. We were in the Nationals. We were playing Los Angeles, and we were a better team. But at the end of that season, the guys were kind of like getting selfish and all that. You know how hockey goes, right? And they were kids, and you got dads involved, and some guys were supposed to be better players or whatever. So we're losing, I think it was 4-5-0 going into the second period or third period. And I was just like selfish. Like they were playing selfish and just uninspired, and it was brewing for a while. So when I went in the dressing room in between periods, I said, okay, this is the Nationals, guys. This is the Nationals. Now I could give them shit. They're down 5-0. How are you going to come back from that? If you give them shit and make them worse.
Yeah.
Like the story time now is not about, you can yell and scream. Okay. You can go through systems. Okay. What I chose to do, and I got emotional about it because it was so emotional to me. So when I went to under 17 camps, I had a broken ankle. And my desire to play for under 17 was a major goal of mine. So I was limping around and all that stuff. And the trainer said, no, you can't play. And I said, no, yeah, I have to play. I have to play. So I went out in this camp. Like I'm able to keep it under control now, but like it's so emotional to me because I know what I went through, the pain, the mental attitude, but it was physical pain, but it wasn't that much pain because I wanted it so bad. So I was expressing that to them. Like I said, I couldn't walk, but I got on the ice. And at the end of the day, I made the under 17s with a broken ankle. I couldn't walk, guys. My ankle was swollen like this. Doctor said, you can't play. And I said, I'm playing. So it was a lot more inspired than that.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, that message was like, because I was like tearing up because it was coming from my soul. From my soul. And they got it. And we went out and won 7-5 in one period. So that was an appropriate story. Anything else wouldn't have worked. And it wasn't necessary because I needed something to work. I just had to get it out that you guys are playing in the most important game of your life right now. A champion national title, and this is what you're giving. And you say you want this? This is what wanting it is. This. Now maybe that's nothing, but that's what it was. And it was enough to get them motivated. So that story was something that blew them away. Yeah. And the kids still remember it.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
So
powerful, man. It resonates.
It's very, very, very powerful. Stories are freaking powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can tell it's like, well, it's for anyone that, because if you haven't played high level sports or whatever, or you've had an experience like that, you can think about when you watch a really good movie, the same thing happens, man. You get attached to like the hero figure or whoever it is that's doing it because it's a good story, man. That's what so it helps to relay the message instead of just dictating, right? Because a lot of people they need an example, right? They need an example of what to do. Like the way that I am is I'm very like step by step, just tell me the answer and I can follow it. But a lot of people they need something more. They need more stuff surrounding it to mask the message, and they get more inspired that way, right? So that's an important thing to do. So the next one we had was praising good behavior,
Yeah.
however small it may seem.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah, it's huge. And it's not just, as you see, a lot of times it's easy to go to the Connor McDavid and say that was a great game. He got 3 goals. But then what about the guy that's just that's a fourth line guy? What about a defenseman that's a shutdown guy? It's not always about how good you are at something, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's great, but what you like to do is reward good effort. That's really, really important, and good behavior. I don't want to talk behavior like, oh, you're a good boy today, but sometimes it actually is important. So like if you're coaching a team and you got like kind of a jackass kid, like how you bring the best out of people, or uninterested people, how you bring the best out of them is reward those little things, right? So if you see a kid that's just uninterested, half-assing it, and you've asked questions and what do you want out of this thing, and even if there's not much there, but if you say, hey, that was a good pass, dude. I've noticed in practice you've done your practices, your passing is getting better. Like that's good. What happens is you'd be amazed how many people don't get praised or don't know that they're doing something well.
Mm-hmm.
So every little bit of encouragement or something that someone recognizes them actually goes a long way with a lot of kids.
Yeah.
Right? I'm talking kids.
Yeah.
But even at a pro level, right? Like there's so much. It's so easy to go on the beat down with people and tell the negative. That's coaching, right? It's picking apart the negatives. But if you give a pro guy and you let him know, hey, the shutdown thing was good, good effort, great 3 shifts, whatever, and you tell them the little things, that goes a lot longer way than the obvious.
Yep.
So like my big example was coaching that young team when I was a kid, and it was just like it was bad. But the one kid didn't have any hockey brains. I don't know if he was even the best behaved kid, but he could skate. He could skate. Like he's very fast. And I said, okay, so this is what he's going to do. I said, I'm going to give him something to do. I'm going to give him a chance to just hound dog pucks and penalty kill. Like just wherever the puck is, just get on it. And he did it well. And it actually turned out to be pretty good. So when he did it, I'd praise him. It was the lower level kids that got the puck, just simply got it out of their zone. It was praised. And then what happens when you praise them? They want to do it again. So that just leads to better things.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. That's a big one too. It's no matter how small, that's the thing, right? Because you don't know the impact, man. Like goes back to that conversation we had before. You don't know how much you're gonna influence the kid. Like you would be shocked at what kids remember about what you say. You know, whether it's good or bad. You have no idea. Like I've used this example before, but with Charlie's age, we're very, very tight with that particular age group. And sometimes they'll say things to me that I have said to them that I don't even remember ever saying. Right. And it was like, man, I do this all the time now because you said this that one time. And I'm like, I didn't even know that you were listening when I said that, or I don't even remember it, you know? So you have no idea how far it can go when you give them a word of encouragement or something that's helpful or whatever. You don't even know what it's going to be. Yeah. It could seem like nothing to you or something that you take for granted as a given, and they just don't even know that that's a thing, right? So it's important that you...
Well, and as a coach and a teacher, then you know that what the kid says very, very often to himself is, I didn't go unnoticed here.
Yep.
Like that could be good or bad.
Right.
If the kid's being a jackass and it doesn't go unnoticed, then he's like, okay, the coach, whatever, is actually watching me. And then from a positive side, it's like, oh wow, he noticed that I picked up the pucks after practice, or he noticed that I was encouraging guys, even though I wasn't getting the most ice time. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like all those things add up, and it's only a positive. And I can tell you right now that if even as an adult, like sometimes people throw out, like, it doesn't hurt me. doesn't hurt me when someone says, Andy, your clinics are like really, really good. Like we've been to other places and like yours are good. Like you're dialed in and you can skate, eh? Because I'm actually starting to think that I'm no good at skating. So you hear that, you go, that gives me life.
Mm-hmm.
You
As a
know,
grown man, yeah,
as a grown man that I have a fair bit of confidence,
yeah,
that gives me life. And that gives, or a coach comes up, like they give you a card and say, thank you for all your teaching.
yeah.
I've learned so much. That right there is enough to sustain you for months.
Yeah.
Because you made a difference in that kid's life. That's because that's my purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If it wasn't my purpose, maybe I wouldn't care so much. But an adult saying, man, you rip a puck still. Like, wow, your hands are good. It's like, okay, because I actually might have needed that.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
I don't, but
it's the same.
Didn't hurt. It didn't hurt.
It didn't hurt, man. It's
didn't
the same
hurt.
at any age for sure.
It's like, okay, I still got it.
Yeah.
Good. Whew.
Yeah.
Right?
And that kind of leads right into the next point, you know, talking about praising the good behavior, good effort or whatever, is sticking to your word and being honest. I think this is probably my live and die by principle as a coach.
Yeah.
Is the doing the things I say I'm going to do and being honest, like tying those kind of together. Like if the kids know, or whoever I'm teaching, if they know there will be a consequence, there's going to be one. If there is praise, they know that I mean it, right? Yep. So whatever I say, there's no unpredictability. There's no bullshit. There's none of that. This is what we said was going to happen. This is what's happening. And there's no question. So they know to take what you're saying seriously. They know to take you at your word. And that's how you can build trust, where they feel like they can trust you to help them and vice versa. Or if you're just a bullshitter, like that gets old real quick.
It's the worst, man.
Like it is the absolute worst. And this is something that coaches really, really, really are guilty of, because you get kids all the time that will say, well, my coach said I'd get this, this, and this, and I didn't get it, right? Whether it's, I practiced on the power play all week, and then the game happened, I didn't get 1 second of power play. My coach said I'd be on the power play. It's like, okay, that didn't need to be the case. The coach could have said, you're going to work on power play all week. I'm not saying you're getting in the power play on the weekend. Right? Yeah. We're going to see how you do in practice, and then we'll see for the game. Right? Yep. Now the kids know, right? So that honesty piece and sticking to what you say, good or bad, that's really, really important to being believable, being respected, and having the kids trust you, or whoever you're teaching trust you, right?
Yep. It's very, very important to say that you have to be ready for the game 10 minutes before, so I can talk to you about the game. If you're not ready, this is this. Because what happens is you totally lose them if you don't stick to it's parenting, right?
Yep.
It's the same. That's what I find coaching is parenting. It's if you give a leash or you kind of wishy-washy, then you're done. No one will ever believe you and trust you. And trust is the biggest thing. Once you start losing trust, you lost them.
Yep.
Right? And the honest part, it's very hard sometimes. It's very hard to be honest with people, but honesty is there's you can put velvet on the sledgehammer sometimes.
Right.
But when it's negative.
Yeah.
But when you're honest with people, they know exactly where they stand. Yep. Right? So sometimes you have to tell a kid that whatever, but I actually expect more from you, because that right there is not good enough for you.
Yep.
Right.
And that's the other thing about the honesty part. That's a good thing to point out, is being honest doesn't mean being a dick, you know? And that's one of the things that irritates me about people say like, I just tell it as it is, or I just say it how it is. It's like, okay, man, like you're talking to a kid, or even if you're talking to somebody you work with or whatever, saying I tell it as it is. It's like, I think that about me. I say it how it is, but I'm not a dick. Like I'm not deliberately saying it in a way that I know will hurt someone or whatever, right? There's a way to deliver the message, right? So that's important. And the last one that we had here, which this is probably the most important thing generally, is being an example of what you're trying to teach, you know? So that's the biggest thing for people to take you seriously as a teacher or as a coach or whatever, is if you're not an example of the things you're saying, man, do the kids call bullshit real fast on that.
Yeah. The thing is with that is, a lot of people, like in my experience, will talk about standards, right? This is what we're all about and stuff. But then you look at their actual life, and the thing is, when you're coaching or teaching, you're around these people on a very, very um, extreme level, right? Coaching a team, you're with them as much as sometimes their parents are. And if you're professional or junior or whatever, then you're with them more than anybody. That's who you deal with. So if you're preaching, like as a teacher, so like as a coach, let's say, um, I'm asking you, Eric, to go out there every shift and give me 110% every shift. And if you make a mistake, it's like blah blah blah. I get frustrated with you, and I slam the doors, and I lose my shit because you're not giving me 100%. But did I come in 100% as a coach? Kids, players read that. Are you actually all in? Because if you're not, then shut up.
Yeah.
And it's like an example of excellence in everything that you do. It should be like if you're leading a team, right? There's nothing like talking to a group of kids when you're the hockey coach and you're talking about they're not in shape and they're lazy, but like it all takes is one look at you and say, well, how would you know?
Yeah.
How would you know? You haven't done anything, man.
Yeah.
Whereas if you go into a coach and you're trimmed up a little bit, and I'm not saying you're built like a statue, but you look like you give a shit about yourself, right? Like, but that's important. You look like you care, you act like you care, you carry yourself like you care, you care, like that whole professionalism, that image of excellence is there. Your attitude's good. You don't snap. You tell kids to keep discipline, but you snap every 4 seconds. That's not the same. So if you can be the person that if you could be the example for the kids or the players or the students, however you want to say it, then you have a lot more credibility. Then they know that you're not just a bunch of fluff. So, and for me, that goes a long way. Like that goes huge.
I know.
Someone tells me, give me the ABCs on how life works, and I look at their life and I go, well, like your mess? No, thank you. And that was one of the things, that was one of the things that I really, like as a student in school, because I was not engaged in school. Okay, I'm not encouraging anybody to do that, but that was me. I wanted to play hockey. I didn't care about school. So I remember one day in homeroom in high school, the teacher came in, it was day 2, and he was just a dork. He had a shitty green car. Okay, was that important? Yeah, it is. You know why it's important? Because it showed me he didn't give a shit about anything, or he couldn't afford it, right? A decent car to get him to school. So both ways was unacceptable to me. He came in the second day of school and he had his pen broke and he had ink all over his shirt. Didn't comb his hair, had green pants. He stood stupid. Like everything about him was like, what is wrong with you? No, I'm serious. He'd come to the desk and he'd like that's, but he had this stain and he wore the shirt all year. I'm like, I don't want to learn one thing not one thing from you. Not one thing. Yeah. Because whatever you're selling, I ain't buying. I don't want to be like you in any way, shape, or form. Yeah. And that's the same as your coach. Yeah. If you don't have that, if you just don't have the high, you're not believable, standard, man. It's like I don't want to learn. Yeah, for sure. Well, I think the kind of the wrap up for me is most of these things, like we always talk about, it kind of comes down to the communication thing again. Yeah. And it's the common thread that we talk about through everything. It's being able to communicate effectively, appropriately, and all of these points that we kind of laid out here are kind of different examples of communicating, right? Because even the way you present yourself is communicating, right? It's not just verbally communicating. It's your body language. It's how you present yourself. It's all of those things as a teacher. So hopefully some of those points are helpful for people, because in my experience, I know in yours, because I've learned most of my experiences from your experience, is these are things that we found to be really effective and keeps people not only coming back here, but consistently saying good things and having good memories about working with us, whether it's on the ice, in the gym, or just life things in general. Yeah. Right. And I think that's important as a teacher. So do you got anything else you want to No,
say?
That's good. I mean,
all good?
Communication thing.
Yeah.
Cool. Different ways.
Okay. We'll leave it there. See you guys next week.